Oh, there you are. I was hoping you'd make it. Come in, sit down. Welcome to the Story Well. If you've found your way here, then here is where you belong. In this place, we welcome storytellers of any stripe, whether published or anonymous, budding newbie or seasoned veteran, via prose or stage direction or panel descriptions, through the corridors of your memory or to worlds you've only imagined. You are among your own people. But now it's time to leave the word mines, step back from the writer's block, and put your story on pause. Set down your pen, rest your weary wrists, lay aside your stylus, pull up a seat at the table with your fellow wordsmiths as we discuss the art and craft of story. You're just in time because we've gathered to discuss NaNoWriMo, also known as National Novel Writing Month. Launched in 1999, now known as the Office of Letters and Light, this nonprofit organization is dedicated to promoting creative writing. Every November, they put out a challenge to write 50,000 words of a novel in 30 days. Almost 500,000 people around the world participate, including the three of us who have gathered here today. So joining me at the table are podcast impresario Pete Wright.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the other guest.
No.
I'm very excited to be here. Hello.
I'm so glad. And you are, I'd say, in addition to all your podcasting, you are also a writer yourself. So
indeed.
You are, of course, you are welcome here. And rejoining me at the table is author extraordinaire, Ryan Dalton.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Hey, glad to be here. Can you also call me an impresario so I can put that in my credits?
Sure, exactly. And novelist impresario?
Yeah.
Story impresario?
It's vetted. It can go on Wikipedia now.
It's going to go in my Twitter bio now.
All right, so we are here because we are all three winners. Yes, all of us have won NaNoWriMo. And so as we get started, I wanted to sort of talk to you guys first about your first experiences with NaNoWriMo. Like how did you find out about how to come into your life? What was your first story about, if you're willing to give up story details? Let's start with you, Pete. What was your first exposure to NaNoWriMo?
I don't remember how I was first exposed to it. It was my first documented participation was 2003. And
Wow.
I think it started in 97. So I'm pretty early. And I've been doing it almost every year, but sometimes not successfully. And I'm excited about this conversation because I'm eager to hear how we define success. I've been having a lot of those kinds of conversations around NaNoWriMo. What does it mean to, quote, win? I'm looking forward to that. So I have, as a result, what I would call 3 successful novels out of my many years of participation. And I have so many other just fiery paths of destruction, of blood spilt on the keyboard behind me, of years that I do not count as successful. And so lots of fragments of things that really deserve maybe to be thoroughly reconsidered. But I just haven't gotten to it yet. Every year I start with a blank page, and I really, really enjoy that experience. So
you haven't gone back and done sequels, or
I have not. I have also not done NaNoWriMo, which is another thing that I frankly deserve to do. I deserve to edit some of the stuff.
Oh, I don't know about that. What is?
I'm not sure it's part of the official Chris Batty NaNoWriMo experience. I'm not sure if it is, but it is they break the 6 months apart, and you come back and you actually go through and edit your book collaboratively over the course of a month. And, hopefully if you've NaNoWriMo'd, by the time you NaNoWriMo, you have a sufficient, solid draft of the book that, takes out some of the drivel.
Yeah. What about you, Ryan?
First time I did it was in 2011.
Okay.
And I sort of went out of the gate doing it. Not technically the way you're supposed to be doing it. I was already drafting The Year of Lightning.
Okay.
And I thought this would be a great way to push forward and try to, get another 50K written on that book. And so I was already going. I'd say I probably had a good 20 or 30K at least written on that book at that time. I thought, I'm a pretty heavy outliner, so I knew where most of it was going. So I thought, it would be a great way to push forward. It was my first year writing, a real novel, and it was the first year that I had logged onto Twitter at all, and so that's why I heard about it, because everybody was, all the baby authors like I was, the aspiring ones were doing it, and so I thought, it sounds like fun, so I'll give it a shot. After that, I did start something new with it. I think it was a year or two. It was a good while after that, because after that I was drafting for a while still. But I ended up getting about for Year of Lightning, for that first year, I did hit 50K in that month. For the second one, I think I only did about 30.
Okay.
And
that's what I started winning is that if you hit your 50K, that was what I mean. But
did the second one end up as part of Time Shift Trilogy at all, or
it did?
It did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting because doing it both of those ways informed, like hitting the 50K and not hitting the 50K actually informed a lot of the advice that I still give to people now about exactly what you're saying, what it really means to win.
Right.
So yeah, this is a great topic.
Yeah. So for me, it was 2010. 2010, I kind of was when I consider the start of my career, because I had been in a dead end job doing nothing, just thinking like, I'm going to be big. I'm going to be a writer. I'm going to be doing it, and not writing a thing, not making any connections, not doing anything, just like waiting for Hollywood to call. But in 2010 is sort of where I see I moved and changed jobs, and everything changed essentially. And then from then I sort of started thinking about it in a professional capacity. And so when NaNoWriMo came up, which I'd never heard of until that point, I was like, oh, well, this is the way to do it. To do it. And I learned a ton of things the first time sitting down to write anything of that length. You learn a lot. And then I did the next couple of years, and then I sort of stopped doing it, not because I didn't like it or didn't realize it, is because I was actually writing. So it's sort of like NaNoWriMo is great for if you're not writing and not doing anything, it teaches you a lot of stuff. But by the time it came around, it seems like every time November came around, I was always working on something. So I salute you, Pete, for continuing to do on every time.
And we should be clear, I shouldn't do it this year. I really shouldn't. I have a lot to do. But, there is something that I think is really important about it for me personally, which is the community of it. I didn't start really feeling like I was succeeding at NaNoWriMo, succeeding at hitting, 1667 plus every day until I started going to the write-ins and doing and building my community on NaNoWriMo, which has been decimated so many times with website upgrades that who knows how many people I'm still connected to. But, it's a work in progress. But I really value that experience. And I feel like my approach to NaNoWriMo is so different from the day job and the kind of writing that I do day to day, which tends to be more journalistic, that I feel like it triggers something for me that is unique. And I am podcasting is an audio medium, so you can't see that I bow down on one knee to Ryan, who has turned I am a genuine fan of the Time Shift trilogy. All of my kids, we've all read them and really love the adventure therein. And so I aspire to that one day, flipping over some of these manuscripts and saying, hey, I could actually maybe work something out of this experience. And so I don't want to give away NaNoWriMo without more of a fight. Sure. I feel like I sort of need it. I need it every year.
I think that's a valid point. I mean, that it keeps your, at least once a year, then it keeps your muscles lean. You're actively out and doing it and doing it. So it's like your once a year marathon.
Yeah.
You get out there and stretch out, even if you're not running the rest of the year, like you still prepare and get ready. And then
Is that why I keep breaking my proverbial ankles every November?
Yes.
Because I'm actually not writing fiction the rest of the year. Damn.
This was supposed to be the summer of joy.
As you're going along and typing, then here comes Dalton on your left. Just whoosh,
exactly. That 100%.
So we're all three writers. So Ryan, you consider yourself a novelist?
Yes.
True.
Yes.
Okay.
Primarily
you have other things, but you consider yourself a novelist, like first and foremost.
Yeah, I've written other things, but I do consider myself a novelist. There are other things. Honestly, there are other things I'm better at. I feel like I'm a better script writer because characterization, group dynamics, and dialogue, I think, are my strengths. Prose is, I mean, I love it, but I'm fairly utilitarian with prose.
Okay.
And I, where I gain my most joy is dialogue and that kind of thing. And scripts tend to be so dialogue heavy, and the description tends to be a lot more utilitarian. That I really enjoy that as well. And I'm still sitting on a Green Arrow script that the graphic novel script that I hope I can get him to take at some point, because I'm really proud of it. But yeah, primarily I'd say novelist.
Okay. And as a Pete, do you have a particular place you land in terms of what kind? I mean, all the different writing you do.
Yeah.
This is my wheelhouse.
Well, in terms of what kind of writing I do, like
because I mean,
fiction.
NaNoWriMo is great, but it is a novel. I mean, basically, that's what it's set up as, is like National Novel Writing Month. The idea is that you're writing a novel.
Yeah. And so my first one is just straight up adult literary fiction. It is a story of a guy who loses his best friend from college and does a long road trip across the country with the dead friend's girlfriend that he'd never met. And it's their experience sort of bonding over the memories of this dead person. And I don't know where that came from. There were no superheroes in it. There were no, psychic powers, nothing. That's kind of where I go. I tend to be like, I don't remember where I heard it, but it was like, I live in the real world. Why would I want to fantasize there? So I tend to go to, there are robots there. Definitely, I am big around, older teenagers discovering that they have superpowers. And that's really fun for me, that kind of experience, because it takes me back, and I like that time in my life, and I like exploring sort of ideas there. So I tend to be more of an adventure writer. This year it's more horror thriller that I'm planning, but I've never gone in. I'm interested because Ryan says he's a heavy outliner, and I have the luxury now of having listened to your conversation about whether you're a planner or pantser, and I have been, since I started, very much a pantser. This is the first year I'm going in with any sort of idea of where the story is going, and I'm really excited and sort of terrified about whether I can live up to my own outline.
So
I keep thinking, sorry, about your road trip story, about what if he discovers, like 2/3 of the way through, that the girlfriend is a robot.
Yes.
And I mean, it could be a whole.
That's when the aliens show up.
It's
That's like day 20 of NaNoWriMo, where he's like, I don't know,
right.
Vampires now? Okay, sure, why not?
Suddenly it's a Cloverfield sequel, and it's all coming.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you the conversation that I've had with people before, and people who are not in any way in the professional writing space at all, just who reached out and said, well, it was the brother of a friend of mine or the cousin, or hey, I'm thinking of writing a book. Do you have any advice? And I've learned that my first question to them is, do you want to be a traditionally published author, or do you just want to write a book?
Right.
If their thing is, I just want to write a book, maybe self-publish it, I don't care if anybody reads it, it's very easy advice. Yeah, sure, go do that. It's not much more than that. But if they say, I want to be a traditionally published novelist, then what I do now, rather than saying you can or can't, I give them a 5-minute snapshot of my 10-year journey to publication.
Nice.
And if at the end of it, they don't run screaming, maybe they can do it. And I just leave it up to them. Usually what happens is I finish, there's a sigh, there's a silence, and they go, oh. But the ones that say, okay, and I can tell them they're processing, maybe they'll do it. And I would welcome either one. Writing's, like you said, most of us tend not to be gatekeepers. It's not a zero-sum game. Sure. It's not like if they buy your book, they're not going to also buy my book.
Right. It's actually the opposite. There's a better chance that they go in, they're going to pick up something else at the same time.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you do multi-author events at bookstores and stuff. Right. You're almost always going to scoop up extra sales from someone who came to see somebody else. And for me, it's just about just being really real with someone and saying hey, this is what it takes. If you love it, you're going to do it. And it doesn't matter if it hurts sometimes, but if you don't love it, then, just here's the reality.
This is the experience of flipping a coin and only knowing which side you wanted to land when you get the other side, right? Like, I think your experience, Kyle, is a really good one because, I mean, I don't think the novelists are the gatekeepers in the industry, in the writing of fiction creation. There are already plenty of gatekeepers elsewhere in the industry.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Right? So
there is that thing of with actors. There tends to be that kind of thing of
more of a competitive spirit
between them. There's a competitive aspect to a lot of it because there's a lot of the cattle calls and trying for the same part. Everybody's going to the same point.
Of course, but I do think that there is something to this experience of having demonstrated to yourself that you can churn out a novel length work to see if it's for you. Right. And like you said, it took you 100,000 words or more to discover that it's not really for you, but that doesn't mean it wasn't worth the try.
No, yes, and I'm very happy to have it. I'm happy to because at the time when I did the first one, and I actually. I have a weird mental thing that I've yet to harness is that I can write to a length, and that I said someone will say oh I need a 22-minute thing, okay, and I write and I'll get to the end and I'll go and the end. I'm like, oh, I'm at 22 pages. I don't know. I wish I could figure out a way to make that work financially for me. But I basically wrote the end and it was my 50,001 word or whatever.
Oh wow!
I was within 100 words of the actual length, and I went back and edited and stuff too. But it wasn't I got to the end and then went, oh, okay, I'll just keep going on. It was mentally I was here's the goal, and I got there. Yeah. It was and they all went home. The end.
Well, this is my challenge with word length in general is that my experiences of not being what I consider successful at NaNoWriMo come when I hit word 49,502 and discover what the story's about.
Yep.
And then I end up at 80,000 words at the end of November, and I'm nowhere close to actually writing the end. And then I abandon it because I'm one of those people that when I hit a deadline, I move on. And so that's the kind of material that's just sitting there. I have a zombie story that I think is fantastic. And my protagonist and the crew have been hanging out at this abandoned house in Bellingham for 6 years, and I don't know what's going to happen to them. Somebody should check on them.
Your zombie people should meet my space crew.
Yeah,
who got 50,000 words into their adventure, got stuck on a planet of robots, and are still there.
Finn, the end.
That's what happened to me. Is I hit that thing, and I even went beyond, and same thing. It was December happened, and then all of a sudden there's holidays and all this life stuff, and it's still sitting. I don't even know where it is. It's somewhere on a hard drive somewhere. I never went back to it. So I have one complete story, and what I was saying is, that year was nice. They actually they gave you a discount on getting it published. I mean, not published in terms of but they gave you a physical copy. So I actually had a friend who's a graphic designer design me a cover and sent it in, and I have that book sitting on my shelf, which gives me great joy that there isn't one physical copy of my book that I can go and pull down. I don't think I'd ever let anybody read it because I'm a much better writer now than I was then, but it's nice that I have this actual physical thing.
Meet Zinnia.
You are being very polite to someone who is attempting to kill us.
Her wife, Saffron.
You can plan all you want, but what matters is what you do when your plan falls apart.
And their best friend, Goldie.
Glad we didn't miss all the fun.
Swords in hand, they defend their city from the worst of humanity.
I am Lord Buxton Blue.
Vicious Suave.
The Fraconian Ring.
Herr Haig.
Equity Electric.
Follow their adventures on the Swashbuckling Ladies Debate Society audio drama podcast. Available now at truestory.fm/swashbuckling.
All right, welcome back. Let's talk about specifics then. So, see, when we were talking about this idea, Ryan, you had a thing you were talking about the how you measure success and having a workable thing at the end of it. So you talk a little bit about what you consider sort of what we were talking about before, winning. At the end of it.
Yeah, it's you got to define for yourself what you think winning would be. I mean, the technical NaNoWriMo win is hitting 50K. which is great depending on the kind of writer you are. And if you're a different kind, it's not so great, because if you hit 50K and you can only use 10 of it, did you really win? It's one thing if you're like the type of discovery writer that once you're there, like it takes us 50K for you to kind of figure out the story and then you're good. That to me is that's just the work you got to do if that's your style. But if you want 50K of a story, of a novel, and you just push through it to get that 50, and then at least half of it you're going to end up cutting, it was it worth it? Wouldn't it be more worth it? And I say this, I can only go from my own experience, to, if you need to, go a little slower, take the time that you need when you need it. And if you only do 30K or 35, but you can keep, the vast majority of it, isn't that closer to winning than writing 50 and keeping 10? Because if the goal is to complete a novel, and not just complete a novel, but complete a novel for the eventual goal of publication, to me, I think you got to balance the contest with the quality of the work that you're trying to put out. And a lot of it is just learn, which this NaNoWriMo is great for, maybe like you guys have seen, learning what kind of writer you are and what your needs are. If you're the kind who, like, I know writers, and I mean New York Times bestsellers, that literally they get their concept and their general ideas figured out, and they lock themselves in a room for a month and nearly kill themselves to get it written. But then it's written, and then it's just like they completely bleed out on the page. And then, they go kind of into editing mode after they recover from that. And, hey, bestsellers, it works for them. There's people like me who I've learned through the process that 50K a month is too much for me. And that I really like, because I can be fairly disciplined, as far as like my writing routine. And I like, I hate to call it this, because it's not what it feels like, but I mean, I like the grind. It's the grinding of like, hey, I've got 4 days a week, and each that I'm going to write, and each of these days I've got several hours that I'm going to write, and I can, like, my energy has a steady flow that way. And it, kind of the wheels stay greased, and it's like, but it's also giving my brain enough time to marinate in it and give it some thought. So I'm, I guess, more of a marathoner than a sprinter. There are some people who need the sprint, like, in order to energize them. But I think there are people who maybe cling to NaNoWriMo who shouldn't. So
we'll get into that part too.
Yeah.
I guess,
I know I'm rambling here. I'm just trying to.
Fine.
Yeah.
I guess I don't disagree with you, but I sort of see it in a different way. And then Pete, you can weigh in with which way you want to go, or have a third way. I think one of the best things that NaNoWriMo taught me, and I think taught a lot of people, is the number one thing a writer needs to learn is butt in chair. And I think that is one of the things that I think NaNoWriMo is best at doing, where you can, if you want to become this is the difference in what you want to be too. I mean, like, Salinger writes one book and boom, done. And like, it's like everything else is secondary. What I wanted to be as a writer is prolific. So, like, I wanted to have a catalog. I wanted to put out a bunch of stuff. I wanted to try a bunch of things. And so, but I did nothing for all this time until sort of NaNoWriMo made this thing of, like, every day you have to put down 1,500 words. You have to sit down in front of their computer or phone or tablet or whatever you have access to, piece of paper if you want to transcribe it, and put out content. Like, you have to put out 1,500 new words on a new story. So it teaches you that you have to commit the time to being in front of your device and putting stuff out there, to push everything else away and put it on there. So I'm not as concerned of having a finished thing as much as I am in someone learning that this is how it works for all writers. That we have to, what is it? I'm trying to think. It's John Updike who said, I don't know where the ideas come from, but I know where they go. And that's in front of my computer. And if I'm not there, I'm not going to get them. So I think teaching that is a vital, fundamental part of any sort of newbie writer to becoming a professional. I use the term loosely, but like, a prolific writer that they want to be is that part. What do you think, Pete?
I think the lesson.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
The lesson I learned early. I mean, in college, from a writing instructor, and I got my undergraduate degree in writing, and so that lesson that I learned then was writing doesn't begin until you get your first draft out. Right? It doesn't begin until you start editing it, and that I always found was really valuable because it taught me when to seek feedback. It taught me when to start incorporating other ideas and when to do that. So for me, I have two conditions for what I consider a win for NaNoWriMo. One is, did I hit 50,000 words? Because that implies your point, Kyle. That implies I'm sitting down every day and I'm doing the work.
Yes.
The second is, can I say the end of the story when I'm at the end of the experience? Because that tells me that I have something I feel like I can start to edit. Given my life and time and schedule and the fact that I'm not writing fiction full time and, all of that, like I need both of those things. I need at least 50,000 words and I need to be able to say the end and be satisfied in that, because then I'll know I have something I can go back and start workshopping and edit. That's when I feel like the real work begins. I've written a number of plays, I've written a number of scripts and things like that. And all of that really feels like it begins for me at that first serious edit. That's the first time I wrap my head around the entire story. So that's why I say, I have finished 3 NaNoWriMo books in all those years, because those were the ones I could write the end at the end of and feel like if I gave it to anybody, they might think it's a piece of crap, but they'll at least feel like the story's finished. So those are the things that are important to me. And I find really aspirational and sort of fueling to get to the end of NaNoWriMo. And I actually, to Ryan's point, I actually don't have a problem with writing 50, 60,000 words and keeping 30 of it in the edit, because I don't count anything that comes after that, the editing process, as anything other than workshopping the work. I may need to write 20,000 more words to feel like it's publishable, but, spoken as a guy who hasn't actually published any of the crap that he's been writing, to the guy who has written a number of books that I actually really love. I recognize how weird that sounds, but that's not a problem for me, sort of conceptually. Like, I don't run into that roadblock.
Well, the beauty of all of this is this is one of the things that underscores one of my favorite things about writing, is that when it comes to process, there's no wrong answer. What works for you is the only right answer, is what works for me. And I think there's a certain type of person for whom Nano is perfect. And there's a certain one like me who I'm a fan of the idea of it, but it's not perfect for my process. As far as like, in general, I may do it sometimes to kind of bolster my word count, but part of it for me, part of the reason that for me, 50K a month is too much. It's because I can't sustain the emotional energy that I need for that long. Within that shorter period.
So mental wear and tear.
I need emotional recharge time. I hadn't really thought about it until April and Pike, who blurbed my latest book. She read it and was a fan of it, and she said, "You write with your whole heart." And I hadn't put that into words before, but as soon as she said it, I realized, yeah, that's true. And if you're someone who writes with your whole heart, if you try to do 50K in a month, your heart will explode or just burn out and become a husk. And so that recharge time to me is key. And it's one of the reasons that like a consistent, repeatable schedule is the perfect way for me to do it. I think Nano is great if you're the type who can sit and blow through those words, and that's a satisfying, energizing thing for you. I think it's great. And there are some people who need is sort of, Pete, what you were saying is there are some people who, especially if they're early on in the days and maybe haven't completed much, the confidence of hitting the 50K, like the confidence boost that comes from finishing something, can be huge and really energizing just to catapult them to something new. I always try to kind of give my point of view for the people out there who are like me and may not realize that they're like me and wonder why Nano's like not perfect for them. Maybe just your energy flows differently.
True. So let's talk a little bit about strategies. What have you got? What worked for you?
Well, I would add to that. There are only a couple of things that I'm precious about in the writing process. And number one is I found that I'm just one of those people that there's a certain app experience that matters to me that is just super clean, and I get distracted by features and gadgets and widgets and things like that. I just need to be able to type, and as long as I have an app that I can type on any device that I have in my hand at any given moment, I really appreciate that. And so I have chosen the app Ulysses on the Mac. That is where I do all of my creative writing, and I love it because I have it on all my devices. And once I realized that I can sit down, like you say, in the while I'm waiting for my car to get serviced and write a paragraph, that's another 150 words toward the goal. That's another idea that's out of my head and in permanence somewhere that I can then, get back to elsewhere. So I'm really only precious about making sure that I have the app experience that works for me, that I feel like I can connect with. And I'm just a little bit persnickety about that stuff. I'm a little bit persnickety, and I own it.
It comes with the job.
I don't set my standard to be any sort of candlelit, moonlight lit cabin in the woods where I write for 20 hours a day. For me, it's sprints. It's short sprints. It's like I need to sit down and set it. I use a Pomodoro kind of a technique, right? I set timers and run for 21 minutes and then take a 4-minute break, and I do several of those in a row. But that's kind of it. By the end of sometimes 2 of those, I'm tapped out, and I've generally written my my goal for the day, and then I move on. I'm one of those always leave them wanting more guys. Like if I have one more idea, I might write 1 or 2 words or bullets and then close the lid and save it for tomorrow. I want to cogitate on it, and I don't want to forget it, so I make notes, but I also don't want to write everything that's in that's in my head every time I have a writing session, or I feel like I don't have anything pulling me to the next day. So
interesting.
I don't know.
Okay.
I would say for the outliners who are looking to do Nano, maybe you're like me in that for me, I write at my best and my most confident when I know where the story's going. When I've got the feel for my characters, I have my framework, I know what I'm writing toward. Now, you still definitely leave room for inspiration, and if something hits you in the moment that you're like, oh, that's great, you got to leave room to use that stuff. But if you're a plotter and trying to prepare for NaNoWriMo, figure out as much of it and discover as much of it as you can before November begins, because then the more that you can figure out about who your characters are, where the story is going, kind of the rhythm of the story, you're figuring that out. You're not having to stop over and over again and figure it out on the page while you're trying to hit your word count goal. You've already figured a lot of that stuff out, and now you are executing. So a lot pre-work is going to be very important for plotters who want to hit the 50K or come close to the 50K in Nano. Just give yourself the space beforehand to discover what you need to discover, and then you can just go when it's time to go. For me personally, if I'm out and about, I'll definitely get ideas and maybe a scene idea or a line of dialogue idea. I can't sit and write whole scenes on my phone. I may outline something, but when I'm ready to draft, I usually need at least a couple hours just for headspace. It's just so my brain knows that it has enough room to maneuver. So I try to give myself that space to feel free mentally to write.
Yeah, my friend Laurie says, I always know when I'm ready to write is that all my laundry's done.
Yeah. Well, I have one thing to add to that, and I live with ADHD, and there is for anybody else who's maybe dealing with neurodivergence, the idea of satisfying that part of your brain and like to get the juices flowing. Like I need to stop for 15 minutes and set a timer and like play a video game or something, like just to get my mind free of task lists that sometimes I can get really hyper focused on and never start to write, because I'm really good at figuring out what things I need to do next that aren't writing. Like the laundry is just please, like, hold my beer. Like I will be rearranging and rebuilding furniture before long. Like it just doesn't take that much. So like there is something to that. Like I need to stop and really do something totally frivolous for a little bit just to turn on. Like there's a piece of that for me. So
I had to make some big mental shifts in my process during all the pandemic stuff, just because 90% of the stuff I wrote before this, I didn't write at home. I don't care for writing at home. I would go to coffee shops, libraries, anywhere where there's people, where there's energy.
Libraries was my big thing too.
Yeah, I always really enjoyed that. And so writing this last book that I wrote this past year completely at home was it was a real mental shift, and I had to do what I could to try to mentally say, okay, well, this is the new reality, so we're still going to write. But yeah, I miss my coffee shops.
You get your the ambient mixer and have like the coffee shop sounds going on around you, and then every once in a while as you're typing, just randomly bump yourself. Oh.
Right, yeah.
Fine.
Well, the great irony is that this will tell you my quirkiness is that I loved like the whole, stereotypical writer sitting in a coffee shop type thing, but I don't want to hear other people, so I use noise canceling headphones.
Yep, me too.
So it's like, I want to see you, but I don't want to hear you. And I have misophonia anyway, so I'm super sensitive to annoying sounds or sounds that, like, inevitably there's going to be one guy who won't shut up, and his voice like pierces into my brain, and so the noise canceling like really like shuts him out, so he can't do any damage. And but yeah, I mean, the plus side is that writing at home, that guy's not in my house.
True.
But yeah, I do miss the energy. I look forward to going back to coffee shops.
The energy and the light, and not those specific voices. Like I'm with you on the noise canceling. As long as everybody's voice is munged into the level of like a Peanuts adult, right?
Yeah,
like
it's a curtain of white noise.
Yes, yeah. I can still hear that there's activity, and I need that because it like raises the sound floor to the point where I have to turn on in order to tune it out, and that I feel like makes me sort of fire a little bit better. And I have only gone to a coffee shop once where I have sat inside in the last 18 months, and I too miss it. It's maybe November is maybe it's time.
Yeah. And obviously the schedule is another big thing that I think that people deal with. And a lot of people, I think, don't take this on because they're worried about that, because they're busy and have a lot of stuff going on, and absolutely valid. However, I think there are ways you can circumvent that. I know some people who actually do all of theirs on the weekend. So like they basically wait and they do it, which, my God, it's hard.
That's a lot of words
for me. Like to sit down and go 1,500 words. Okay, I can do this. But to sit down and go, all right. Right, exactly. Yeah. Like, for whatever it builds up over the course of the week. And then like Saturday, from like 2 to bedtime, you have to just like power through. But I salute you because I could do that. But I started to think of like, okay, I have to have my precious writing time like from 7 to 8 or whatever. Like kids are gone to bed and like this is my time and everything. But then the more it went on, the more I was like, why do I need to do this even at once? So like that's when I started like doing stuff where I'm like, oh, well, I'm on lunch break. I can do it while I write. So then I would start doing like, okay, 500 here, 500 here. And then you can even go 200 words here. 200 words is nothing. That's a paragraph. Like you can knock that out anywhere. And so once you start doing that, you can sort of little bites of the apple all the way through. It's bird by bird. And so you don't have to think about like getting to that 1 hour where I have to like, crank out 1,500 words. You can do it in little bits. But like I said, this is what we're talking about. Everyone is different. So that's what worked for me. What worked for you guys? Did you actually just like sit down and just say, I'm going to sit here until my 1,500 words are done?
When I started, I did. When I started, that was at the very beginning, I was like, okay, I know that 15 50,000 divided by 30 is 1,666.666 repeating words a day. I need to hit that. And so I did. And almost I would stop like in the middle of a sentence if I did that. And then I realized, you know what, I can actually give myself a break. And I evolved to where you are with it, Kyle. And I think I will often be sitting writing at my desk and somebody will say, hey, you got to go. You got to come with us. We're going to the pumpkin patch or whatever. And I'll take my phone and I'll keep writing another paragraph. Just one more idea, to make sure I know where to pick up, like that kind of a thing. You're absolutely right. How fast the words add up when I can free myself of having to have an hour, but just jotting down an idea, even in a rough form. If the word count is important to you, to make Nano successful, that's a great way to do it, is to break it up into much smaller chunks. Rougher to create a good narrative, you have to massage more, I think. But
in a note you put in that later you go on, that's a gift to yourself.
Yep.
Because that's one less thing you have to think of, that you look at me and go like, oh, right, this is the point where the moose comes in. And you're like, all right. Suddenly walking through the door was the most beautiful moose I'd ever seen.
I tried to treat the 1,500 like, when I could, like the minimum, like par, I'll hit the 1,500 if I'm still feeling it. If I've got more in the tank, I'll just keep going until I don't. And the nice thing about that is that if the next day I'm clawing like for every word and I hit to 1,200 and I can't possibly do anything else without it being crap, fine, I'll stop. I exceeded yesterday. So that's kind of how I did it. I would just, and this is just a thing for you, do it enough, you kind of learn yourself. When you hit the wall where you're like, anything I put out now is not going to, like, it's not going to stick. I'm going to end up deleting it. Then for me, I thought, well, I might as well just save the energy and turn in now and start again tomorrow.
I think there's I love that, because there is a point, I think, in Nano where you're sitting at a coffee shop and you don't quite know what's happening next. Yeah. And so you start writing about the coffee shop. And suddenly your entire setting is in a coffee shop, and that redheaded man over there, yeah, he's in your book now. That's when you should stop. You should just stop. You've run out of gas. And it's like, from the Nano perspective, and I know this is one of those like no plot, no problem, Chris Batty kind of bits of advice. When word count and the goal of convincing yourself that you can do a hard thing is your number one mission, writing about the characters in the coffee shop is a very important trick to be able to pull out of your back pocket, and just to churn out words. But in terms of the story, you've run out of gas when you start writing about the redhead.
All right. So as we sort of wrap up, are there any other pieces of advice or anything you want to give to the hardworking word scribes out there trying to do this? Anything that we haven't touched on yet?
I'm curious your stance on editing as you write when you're in the Nano process, because I think that is one last little chunk that I think is different for everybody, but also might be different in Nano than out. So I'm curious how you guys.
Dalton and I are diametrically opposed. I think they're not opposed, but like it's opposite of this. So I'll let him.
I feel like I can predict what each of you are going to say, and I just want to put it out there as a podcast grenade. Go for it.
Yeah.
And it was the last podcast they ever did.
Yeah, exactly. We're done professionally.
Dunzo. No. Again, this is always with a caveat of just learn what works for you. If you're the type of person like me, who if there's something wrong that you've left behind, and it's going to be a splinter in your brain the entire time, go edit it, go fix it, polish it. If it means you're 1,000 words short at the end of Nano, but you have a better manuscript at the end, in my book you still won. But there are some people who that interrupts their flow, and they'd rather just get it all down and go fix it later. If you can not think about that problem is there, and just go to the end, do it. But if that's going to impede your process, and it's then and you need the scaffolding to be there for the end to hold up, then go fix the scaffolding.
Well, I think it's a vital part. I think it's the yin yang. It's the balance. Like, you have to have that. I think they are also diametrically opposed forces. So I think, especially for NaNoWriMo, I say take your inner editor, tie him up, put him in the back of a car, drive the car off a cliff. Like, he'll survive. They're tough little bastards. But like, don't edit anything. My advice is basically let it flow, let it rip. Do not stop for anything. Do not go back. Like, if you write a sentence you don't like it, don't erase it. Write it again. Like, write whatever the preferred version of it right then. Because I don't want anyone activating that side of their brain at all in the creative process. Like, editing is super, super important, but I think it is a second part of it. Like, you're talking about NaNoWriMo or whatever, vital part, but not part of not part of this, you know? It's like you say, like Donald said, it's absolutely right. I mean, in terms of if it's going to nag at you and bother you and all that stuff, but the problem is then you're stopping the creativity river or whatever, because you have to go back and fix a little thing. And now you have to start the whole process over again, because once the editor is there and once he's engaged, vital to the process, really freaking annoying when you're trying to get something creative going. So yeah, I'm against that. I think that is a thing that needs to be done on a separate thing, because it engages a different part of your brain. And I think the two don't work together very well. I think editing could probably be a topic for a whole conversation, though, that we could get into and stuff too. But like, in terms of Nano, in terms of just letting it go, like, yeah, the less impediments you can come up with.
I put,
including your own mind.
Yeah, I think I'm probably between you guys. I also like to just get the words on the page, vomit the words on the page.
Yes.
But for anything that becomes a splinter, I have a keyboard shortcut. And if I hit Shift, Control, Option, Command, ? That inserts 3 interrobang characters in my text. And then I can do Command F and search for 3 interrobangs, and I can just skip down to all the things that I while I was writing, I thought this is going to be a thing I need to fix later, because I don't use a lot of interrobangs in my writing. So I found this like as a workaround for me. It's like effectively just a checkbox that says, you know what, while you were writing this, you didn't feel 100% great about it, and it might impact something down the road. I usually on the weekends during Nano, I might take a few extra hours and just kind of skim the stuff that I've already written, so I make sure I'm still actually writing the story now that I started with 2 weeks ago. Because I think in an event like Nano, that's a risk that you know, and it certainly is for me, that when I get to word 40,000, that I'm not writing the same story that I was in word 1, and so I need to make sure. But who knows? This month might be different, because I'm actually doing the patented Ryan Dalton approach to writing a novel and actually planning it first. So we'll see how that works.
That's amazing.
Oh man, I have not been cashing in on that.
Like I should have. Memorial.
I got to start enforcing that patent.
When you publish, you can get his seal of approval, which is for
only I could get the Ryan Dalton stamp.
That's right.
Yeah, if you got it, you'd find out exactly how much that stamp is worth. So let's just leave that as a mystery.
It's just a pen and a meditation candle with a wreath around it. That's all it is.
Or it's just a guy shrugging, like, I don't know.
Good enough for me. All right. So obviously, hopefully, in terms of like, we all have different opinions, we all have different ideas, we have different processes. So hopefully, through listening to this, you've found something that will help you do it. So for all you NaNoWriMo warriors, we salute you. It is a great process. I learned so much about myself and about writing and about the process by doing it. So I wish you all your daily word counts, and that you win, no matter how you consider winning. So anyways, as we're silencing our inner editors, we're going to engage our inner creativity, and we're going to make something together. So stick around. We have one more thing to do before we all head on our merry way. So stay tuned.
Here we are at the Man Cave, where we hope to catch a glimpse of the Mandies, 2 best friends with nothing in common except their name in their natural habitat. Wait, we've spotted Mandy Kaplan.
Fucking A, I'm out of olives.
And here's Mandy Fabian.
Who threw this banana peel in the trash? It's compostable.
They seem to be circling one another.
Cheers.
Every week, they hunt down a movie, TV show, or trend and drag it back to the cave to completely disagree over.
Okay, I'm just saying Melissa McCarthy can do no wrong.
2 words, thunder and force.
Okay, that was one bad movie.
Happy Time Murder?
Will this friendship become endangered?
I see where you're going with this, but she herself is a national treasure.
Find out each week in the Man Cave.
Thanks for naming the show after me.
Oh, that's okay. It's actually named after me.
What now?
Okay, let's make something together. All right, so I had Dalton pick the stuff before, so I'm going to have Pete do it this time. So I have 17 genres, so please choose a number between 1 and 17.
I feel like we're going to operate best at the extremes, so I will pick 17.
Nice.
Oh, it is a tale of suspense. See what I did there?
Ooh.
There we go.
That's
what we
need.
need.
Mm-hmm. All right, write that down. Suspense. All right. Next,
are you like bracketing while we do this?
We have 30 possible locations. Choose a number between 1 and 30.
I'm still picking. We're not
still
going
picking.
back.
Yeah, we got 3 things. We're going to do a genre,
okay,
location, and object. And
yeah, I did these all last time, so it's all you.
We're going to create something.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is a suspense story, and it is going to be at location number 1.
Oh, number 1. It is
Extremes.
at a lemonade stand.
Nice.
All right, and we're going to involve an object. So I have 30 different objects.
30,000 objects. We're going to be object number 22.
22. Okay. It is a syringe.
Oh, yeah, fertile ground.
Okay.
Fertile ground. How did you know what my nano book was about this year?
Well, I did some research on the side, and this is just to help you get through now.
Oh, okay.
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
right. This is an exercise.
We're now going to outline your novel for you.
That's right. Begins with a guy in a coffee shop. So it's a suspense story involving a lemonade stand and a syringe. Okay, so my first thought is lemonade stand. See, if we do a syringe and lemonade stand and suspense, it leads to children. I don't really like that. Can we make a lemonade stand be a lemonade store?
Or like a hard lemonade stand?
Yeah, I was just going to say it's a hard lemonade. This
I was
is going to
thinking
be
like sort of a
at a fair.
at a fair.
That's good.
Lemonade
I was thinking
lemon daiquiris or
artisanal lemonade place in in Seattle or whatever. Like they're like a store, but like you want to do.
Yeah, it's like I can imagine going in and getting like a vodka lemonade sort of daiquiri kind of smoothie
artisanal.
Or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Lemonade.
Okay. So a concert, a festival, a fair. What do you think?
That's just one idea.
I'm imagining like a boardwalk kind of a thing.
Okay. Or street fair.
Street fair, something like that. Something there's
a lot of people moving through.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it is, as we record this, it is the spookiest time of the year, right?
True.
And I mean, it could be like an All Saints Day kind of a festival.
Okay.
It could be Dias de los Muertos kind of a thing. Isn't frozen hard lemonade a staple of our
What if we put it on
fairs?
Like a beach side boardwalk or something?
I can see that. Okay.
Is that, if it's still in October, kind of a warmish day and people are at the beach, they may still in the fall think I would like a nice refreshing adult lemonade.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, so this tale of suspense and involves a syringe. So what's in the syringe? So is it like someone has poisoned a particular lemonade, or they're buying a lemonade for the person they're with, and they've injected it full
somebody is injecting lemons. It's got to be
injecting lemons.
You have to imagine that they're making fresh squeezed lemonade out of some sort of injected lemon supply.
So I'll tell you the first concept that popped into my head. If it's too derivative or you want to do something else, shoot it down. But my first thought was almost treating it like a phone booth type situation, where the lemonade guy gets a call and he's like, and the guy on the phone is like, I have a sniper rifle trained on you. Look under the thing, and there's a syringe. When this certain person comes to order a lemonade, you're gonna poison their lemon And if you don't, then you're going to be dead before they walk away.
There we go.
So kill this person with a poisoned lemon, or you're dead. That's just one idea.
And it's called the squeeze.
No.
No, but I like that. I like that because I was thinking of that same sort of idea of like that Alfred Hitchcock ordinary guy brought into extraordinary situation sort of thing. I was thinking of like a spy something or other too, like somebody put something in the lemonade and then it's like, when are they going to drink it too? But I like that idea of the ordinary person now brought into this because they know the person's going to stop.
So what are their stakes? What is the person in the lemonade stand like? What is the thing that's going to keep ramping up the complicating incidents in the story as we keep moving it forward?
Something crazy about their life. So like, okay, so let's say it's let's say it's a girl who's like her last day of work before she leaves for college. Like this is her last shift. So it's like what you say, like this time of year. So it's like fall-ish. So like the first semester of college is about to starting, and so there's honestly like finishing the time, and then but everybody in town is coming there too. So it's all of these. You're seeing everybody in your town,
and we start the story where her entire future is ahead of her.
Yes,
right? We have
it she's like finally
one is like
she's the one who gets out. Right.
Yeah,
she gets she's the one who's going to get out. And so this is her last shift at this place that she's worked for all the time, and she's managing. So there's no one above her or whatever, so they can't say boss, this person, and then exactly takes the call and then suddenly finds herself that now she has this thing she has to deal with, potentially possibly murdering someone she doesn't know because the person doesn't tell them what the syringe is.
I'm thinking of revising the sniper thing. What if they're watching with like a telephoto lens, but they have rigged explosives in the booth, so that
it looks like,
so that it's not like, because I started to think, okay, well, couldn't she just like drop to the ground so that she can't be sniped? So what if you just rig the booth so that if she fails, the whole booth goes, and there's tons of collateral damage. You might kill a dozen people as opposed to one.
Right. Yeah. So make that part of the stakes that they say, like, well, you could go, but then
it's the trait with
the booth next to you. What's
the trolley dilemma,
the trolley problem, right?
Yeah,
the trolley problem.
Right. It's not just about you.
Yep. Yeah. Okay. Why her? Why this booth?
Yeah. How did the person know? If we're to believe this, so at this point we're acting as if the person who's making the call is legit. Like they are a weird assassin who's doing this.
We just assume that we write a scene where they prove that they can do what they say they're going to do.
Yes. So this isn't a prank. This isn't, Scream. Or
they
whatever.
do something to demonstrate that they're serious, but it can't be too big. It has to be something that only she would notice. But we just assume they've established their credentials as a murdering psychopath.
What I was informed that there would be some sort of time play at work in this conversation. And so I would like to submit that possibly the person who is calling her is her from another timeline.
Oh, wow. Okay. That adds a whole
sci-fi
thing.
We've just made a sci-fi suspense time looping kind of a
you could do some interesting stuff there.
You're
because if it's, you would have to like scramble the voice on the phone and make it sound maybe masculine or something, just to to throw you off the scent a little bit. But part of the mystery could be, how does this person know so much about me? How do they know things about the people that are going to walk up to the booth? How do they know things that nobody could possibly know? So that could be an interesting thing. Like, how is this person so well informed?
Because in the end, this person ultimately is trying to rectify a great wrong that she's already aware has happened.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's the John Connor scenario, right? We've just thrown John Connor into the lemonade,
or at least what she perceives as a great wrong or injustice. If she's the villain here, then she would have to have a twisted sense of whatever she's trying to rectify.
But that's what's so beautiful, because she believes she's the hero.
Life.
But she believes she's the hero, of course. Yeah, she believes this is 100% necessary.
The small town life was the best time in her life. When she goes to college, everything gets worse and worse and worse and falls apart. Even though somehow at the end she gets time travel.
Somehow that happened.
Things would have to go pretty well in order to end that way. But
well, maybe she went to college for some sort of physics degree.
Maybe that was her experience. And this is there's a government. There's got to be some sort of government science sort of inserted here, right? Maybe that is how do we start a time travel loop?
She stole a device from DARPA, who she worked for after college.
Okay, so how does injecting someone with poison at a lemonade stand fix her life?
Well, are we thinking that it's going to fix her life, or is there some other thing that she's trying to feel like? I mean,
that's true. This could be more about the person who comes to the booth and not about her, the younger her at all.
Yeah, like
it would have to be something.
A spy thriller going on.
It would have to be
she is a
something
side character in that now someone has elevated her to a main character in essentially,
or it could be something that affected her in some way, but that. Yeah, she still feels, because I feel like in order for her to still feel like she's the righteous one, she would have to feel like she's righting a greater wrong than just something went wrong in my life. So it'd have to be something with bigger that, I mean, this could be like she's trying to take advantage of a butterfly effect thing. Like it doesn't appear that poisoning this one person's lemon is going to do anything. But if you follow the chain, 20, 30 years down the road and 5, 10, 20 different people, she's been able to figure out that this one disruption stops this thing in the future that she's trying to fix.
And I think I think that's probably the story, because it makes the lemonade stand and her younger self incidental. Like the whole reason she's there is only because she happens to know, because she was there the first time, exactly when these paths would all cross. Mm-hmm. They would all converge right there. And she just needs to she knows she might have some influence and what buttons to push, because she was the person getting the buttons pushed on her.
So it's more Looper than Twilight Zone.
Yeah.
That could be, yeah. What if it's somebody that like she had an opportunity in her original timeline, like someone who did something bad. She had an opportunity to stop them in their early days before they, ramped up to whatever they were doing. And now she wants to go like take them out before they ever even have a chance to, I don't know, just throwing stuff out.
What I love about this is like, like, hey, yeah, I know a guy who defuses bombs for the FBI. I also know that he used to be sell hot dogs on the side. Like this is one of those stories that's like the Joe every person just happens to become the super agent. And how do you make it legit? I like it.
Yeah,
I think Kyle's convinced.
I don't know. I kind of like. I really like that idea of the like cellular, where it's the regular person who gets brought into it, where that she becomes a super spy. It seems like what my friend Lori would call needlessly complicated. It seems like if she wanted, it seems like there would be easier ways to do what she needs to do. This has to be the only way she could find to do it without X, Y, and Z happening. So
That's true.
Why this way? Yeah, why this way? Of all of the possible scenarios, why is a syringe and a lemonade stand using time travel the most efficient way to do this, and not have it be? I just wanted to talk about time travel.
Okay, that's fair point. That's a fair point, and I may be willing to rescind my time travel insertion. Maybe. I'm not
against her from the future, doing the thing, but it has to be airtight, and that's what we have to figure out today or whatever too. But I still am liking all of the stuff leading up to that, like the call and like all that kind of stuff is like, because that automatically is like, you get into that, what would I do in this scenario kind of thing, and then you have to think all the different ways, like what could she possibly do, because she can't hang up the phone.
Especially
she's got like one earbud in, and so the voice is constantly there, and so they can see her when she tries to do something like sneaky to get away with something.
tech paranoia of like, we know like where your phone is, we can track it.
Well, and because this is a set piece that really, I think the challenge would be not leaving this set piece, right? This is never go to a second location, right?
Yeah,
so
which I love.
Everything has to be through people coming by the lemonade stand.
Yes.
We have to get out of that experience.
Yeah, I love like the closed room, like very, very claustrophobic, and like you can't. Well, like it's interesting. I had read about like for Phone Booth, they had I guess sort of interviewed a number of directors for that job, and they said the first batch of them, like almost all of them, came in and said their first question was, how soon can we get him out of the phone booth? And then Joel Schumacher comes in, and he is all in on him never leaving the phone booth, which was what they wanted. And when you see the movie, that's the magic of it, is that he's in that phone booth the entire time. So I feel like it's you could have the same tension here.
Well, and I love that constraint that we're at a fair, like some sort of outdoor event, which is
so
big and
everywhere.
open and explosive with energy, and she is still trapped. Like that's the thing. We have to have it. It has to be a serious enough threat that she doesn't feel like she can ever leave that space. So we can never leave that space.
Well, and then part of the initial threat is, if you run, you may save yourself, but I'm going to blow the booth anyway, and anybody nearby is dead.
Yeah, and they can start describing people like, what about that family, the girl with the red balloon?
Yeah.
Like, what happens to her? They know that their person is really watching, and they even have it in like real time, like, oops, she dropped her ice cream cone, like that kind of thing. So they know,
not
they're actually like, they're really seeing that.
It's probably a network of drones. Right, we got to have drones,
or even like she reaches out to pick up something, comes back, and there's something new sitting on the table, so they know that there actually is someone like physically in the area. Mm-hmm. But then it also becomes how do they know they're going to go to the lemonade stand? How do they how do they know that this is the of all the stands? Why not a pretzel? Like why not
Well, and that's what I was trying to do with trying to figure out why, why is there a special connection to her in the lemonade stand, right? And if, in terms of making this a suspense fantasy,
it's a solid idea, because it makes we walk them down the path of thinking it's about the person who's being murdered. Yeah, but it's not. It's about her
and the connection, right?
Right, and about setting her on a different path.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like it's she wasn't chosen randomly. It was specifically about her. Everything else is just window dressing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But then, what is the value proposition in the third act? Like, what are you going to do to get her out of it? Yeah, like how does it resolve? Because I think a strong case could be made that the big conflict is not about a specific single antagonist that we're waiting for necessarily, and that it's really just the intrigue about figuring out who why the connection is right there. But you could also go down the other road, that there is a specific antagonist that we're trying to find and rectify the situation to free her from her future history.
In the end, it was all just a terrible reality show. What did you kill? Put people under pressure, and we see what happens.
I'm kind of noodling around an idea, and this is the kind of thing that like you're never supposed to say out loud when it's half baked and you just thought of it. But
this is what writer's room is all about, right?
I know. I'm just thinking about like cause and effect and limitations, and like why she would do certain things, and how could that tie into like the resolution at the end. What if one of the twists is it turns out that like her future self has not actually time traveled back, but she has the tech that allows her to just like communicate across, like have a communication tunnel across time, but she's trying to make it look like she's actually there. But she's not. She's actually still in the future and communicating from her native time. But maybe she threatened somebody else in the same way and tricked them into doing the explosive thing. She's pulling the strings from the future and trying to make it look like she's actually there, like she's a person there. And what if she's somehow limited? It could be that she's reached out to herself because there's a limiting factor in that she can only in that, and you'd have to, that creates a plot hole that you'd have to figure out. But what if she can only reach out to herself, or is limited in some way that you'd have to figure out, okay, how'd she get the explosives in there? But it could be that she's limited in her options of who she can actually communicate with and what she can do. So she had to focus on, okay, well, I need to find a point in my own timeline where I can essentially take advantage of myself and make myself do this. And it could be that she's part of what I'm thinking is great. How do you defeat someone who's not there, who's across time? I mean, what if even like she's trying to keep herself from doing anything different until that key moment? And it could be that her past self, like our present her, figures out that if anything from her future self's timeline changes, then it breaks the connection, which is why she doesn't want her to do anything different until she kills the guy, because at that point she will have changed history, which means their connection over time is now severed. So what if she ends up figuring that out, and at the key moment, instead of poisoning the guy, she grabs scissors and like chops her hair off or something, like, so
smashes the stand,
something to change herself, or something about her own trajectory into the future, knowing that as soon as she does that, like the causality will cascade and sever the connection with her future self.
Okay, I got a what if. Can I what if?
Yes.
Sure. What if this future antagonist version of her has actually been manipulating past versions of her all along, putting early her from different points in time in different places to manifest like that so it was actually her who put the explosives in the lemonade stand. It was her at a different time who, in a different sort of the multiverse experience, who put the syringe there. It was her who walked by the booth, put the thing down on the counter. It was all her from just fractional seconds in a different timeline all along, that she has been putting hundreds of different versions of her in motion all along. And the very end, when she realizes that she is just one version of ultimately a pawn, that when she changes that one thing about herself, she can no longer be used. Something like that.
Could be.
There's a giant machine of her in different times, just fractionally moving in a different timeline apart from her.
So are they trying to poison the person in just this one universe, or across all the universes?
I don't know. Maybe that's the one thing for this person, right? That's the one thing for this. Like if we can reach out to, because there is a version of Kyle who was not touching his beard 5 minutes ago, right? And there's also a version that spilled like a burrito down his glorious beard 5 minutes before that. And we're trying to change the spill. Oh, yeah.
Well, maybe if you didn't have an NaNoWriMo idea, now we've given one to you. So it's your
Take
idea.
and run.
Take these elements, write a whole novel about it, and let us know. It's actually your idea is yours.
It's called A Cabin in the Woods 2, The Lemonade Stand. It turns out there's a lot going on.
A lemonade stand in the woods.
Didn't get a lot of customers. Not a lot of traffic.
Not a lot of foot traffic. All right, so thank you both for your. It's nice being surrounded by so many winners. I spent so much time with students. It's nice to be around so many winners. So thank you, Pete Wright, for your time and your ideas.
Well, thank you for having me.
And let us know when the first thing is published, and then we'll hype it on the show and let people know where to get it.
So much blood spilled on that keyboard, so much.
But if you would like to put one of our stories in your hand, I know one of us has a new novel coming out, which is able to be pre-ordered right now. Ryan Dalton, tell us about the new book.
Yes, thank you. So it's called This Last Adventure. It is a middle grade novel, but I've heard adults say they enjoyed it as well. So I definitely describe it as cross-generational. It's just kind of the 10-second elevator pitch. It follows a young boy, 13 years old, who tries using storytelling and shared fantasy worlds to save his grandfather's memories from Alzheimer's disease. So that is up for pre-order now. Just wherever books are sold. Extra points if you order from an indie store. like a nice independent bookstore if you can. And then it comes out, hits shelves on February 1st. And it'd be great if you would go read it.
Well, the stories won't write themselves, so back into the world we must go. If you'd like to know more about Ryan Dalton, you can find him at ryandaltonwrites.com or at iRyanDalton on Twitter. His new book, entitled This Last Adventure, is available for pre-order right now. Pete Wright can be found on a variety of shows, but cinephiles should start with The Next Reel, and brain chemistry enthusiasts should look to What's That Smell? Find them in your podcatcher of choice. Thank you for stopping by. If you're in this part of the world again, there will always be a seat for you at the table here at the Storywell. Right on, right away.